The following podcast contains strong language and adult themes and is intended for mature audiences. Listener discretion is advised. Hanky Digital presents The Skin. Show me what lies beneath. An audiobook podcast by Christian Heinke. Chapter 14. At the Boathouse. They found her over there, just by the library, Professor Talbot explained. Andy's eyes followed his outstretched index finger, and he noticed a vase with a fresh bouquet under a small tree on the highest terraced lawn. Of course, the administration didn't want this place to become a kind of pilgrimage site, but I empathize with those who want to commemorate such an act. First, he made them hurt themselves. Unfortunately, we still don't know how. Personally, I suspect he used the same technique he used on the first girl. However, he had refined it. Maybe he just wanted to see how far he could go at first. But when she refused to cut her own breasts open, he must have become furious. Just like one of his lectures, the professor reported on these atrocities with a calm and matter-of-fact demeanor. Andy shivered. The police investigation was initially unsuccessful. The officers assumed the girl had mutilated herself. It was only with the next victim that they realized they were dealing with a serial offender. However, they still did not link this to Parker Daly. On the contrary, he even contacted the police and offered to help with the investigation. Andy nodded. This was the typical behavior of perpetrators with a personality structure that matched Daly's. Control and recognition were the key factors. Most times, someone had denied these to the victims in childhood. They tried to make up for this later by taking up an authoritarian profession. However, they usually failed during their training because of their antisocial behavior. Daly's DNA identified him as the murderer. There was a trial before a jury in which he defended himself. He overplayed his cards. On the contrary, he was brilliant. He almost won his own case. At the last moment, the prosecutor misled him. First, he flattered him, then he mocked him. Ultimately, Daly lost his temper and confronted the prosecutor. The monster revealed his true nature. Talbot ran his fingers through his hair. They convicted him and sent him to a maximum security prison in Virginia. To Wallen's Ridge? I believe so. Talbot looked at him. Until Daly, I was a vehement opponent of the death penalty, he said, but now I just want to see that bastard dead. They say Daly died in prison. I've heard that too, but I don't believe it. The murders of the models are far too similar to his macabre style. He looked at Andy. There's something fishy going on. What do you mean? I followed everything concerning Daly in the media. I wanted to be reassured at all times that he was being kept safe. Talbot pursed his lips. There are a lot of very secure prisons here in Maryland. Did you know that a senator from Virginia had lobbied for the transfer? No, I don't. A senator from Virginia? Senator Williams. Talbot paused. Isn't that the father of this supermodel, Katherine Williams? That's right, Andy replied absently, trying to make sense of it all. The senator has a serial killer transferred to a prison in his state after his daughter's accident. Allegedly, this serial killer then dies under ominous circumstances. But now he is murdering again, one supermodel after another. Is this madman perhaps seeking revenge on Senator Williams? If so, that would mean... I have to make a phone call, said Andy, standing up and taking his cell phone out of his pocket. After what seemed like endless seconds, someone picked up. Kath? He called out. Hello, Andy. An unfamiliar male voice answered him. Andy swallowed and his mouth felt dry. "This is Parker," the voice said. Andy closed his eyes. He felt dizzy. "Ask him. Go on. Get it over with. Is she dead?" "Who do you mean, Andy?" "You know who I mean." "Oh, Katherine? No, she can't die. She's a goddess. She will be reborn, Andy. That's the essence of this." In the background, Andy thought he heard a woman shouting. "I have to go now, Andy. I might wait a little longer, but not for much longer. You'd better hurry." The voice hung up. Andy stared at the screen in disbelief for a moment. "None of this is happening, Fran." "Yes, it is. And you're in the middle of it, my darling." "What is it?" asked Talbot. Andy didn't answer. "Oh my God," whispered the professor. Andy searched the phone memory for Helen Louisiani's number. The busy signal sounded, and he had to use all his energy not to throw the phone on the floor and stomp on it. Easy. Just try again. But it remained busy. Helen realized that someone wanted to talk to her while she was on the phone with Davis. She glanced at the display. Andy Peterson. Well, the doctor would have to wait. "Yes, Davis, I know. In a helicopter. Long story. I don't care. Just hurry." "The sheriff?" Helen thought about it. "Okay, inform the sheriff, but tell him to be careful. It's best if he waits for me. I'm in—" She looked at Johnson, who was listening to the conversation. 30 minutes, he said. "I'll be there in 30 minutes, she said. "How long will it take the SWAT team and you?" "Okay, I see. We'll have to do. But maybe it won't be enough." "Jamie?" asked Katherine as she descended the porch steps. "Jamie," she called out again. All of this was caused by her obsession with her stupid cell phone. She was fixated on it. Why did she have this dubious gift of making people like Jamie turn their most trivial wishes into sacred tasks? She didn't do it on purpose. At least not anymore. It just happened. People did the strangest things just to be close to her. Men had almost killed themselves for her. At first, it had unsettled her. Then it amused her. Now she feared this gift. And it had also worked on Jamie. Jamie had likely already dismantled half of the car in search of the holy relic of St. Catherine. Catherine's flip-flops made funny noises on the gravel as she reached the barn door. It hung open. "Jamie, are you all right?" she called into the stuffy darkness. No answer. She waited, then stepped into the darkness. The bay spread out beneath them like a black carpet. Helen watched Johnson screw a silencer onto his gun and instinctively reached for her holster. Why was it empty? Had she left her gun in Wallen's Ridge? Johnson smiled and shook his head. "You're very good, Miss Louisiani." She pointed at her gun. Not good enough, apparently. The end of life is a biological reality independent of moral judgments. You understand I see it a little differently? That's what makes you so good. "So how will it go?" she asked. She wanted to buy some time and was astonished to realize that she was hanging on to life, or at least didn't want to end it that way. "You're going to shoot me and throw my body in the bay?" Johnson nodded and pointed the gun at her head. Helen stared down the barrel. "That's not the Atlantic below us. A corpse washes ashore. We're flying over open water. It's deep enough." Johnson opened a compartment under his seat. "These are diving boots, very heavy. In addition, I'm going to weigh your body down with chains." His black face looked confident. "You'll stay down." Thought of everything. Helen couldn't think straight. Her head was empty. She had survived 9/11. She would not survive this. Apparently, she had used up her 9 lives. Johnson steadied the gun with his other arm. "I should do something now." Helen saw his finger rest on the trigger. Something. Johnson's cell phone rang. For a moment, it looked as if he was going to ignore it. Then his body tension eased. He secured the gun and answered the call. Now, Helen thought. She threw herself at him. He reacted so fast that Helen didn't even see the blow coming. She went down unconscious. "What was that?" asked Ashera on the other end of the line. "Nothing. Everything's under control," replied Johnson, admiring Helen's courage. "Change of plan," said Ashera. "I want you to take Helen Louisiani to St. Michael's." "Roger that. What about her gun?" "Give it back to her. She's going to need it. Roger and out. Johnson pocketed the cell phone. Helen regained consciousness. Johnson held out his hand to her. Helen looked at his huge paw. Did I miss something? She asked, rubbing her sore chin. Johnson shrugged. My orders have changed. Here. He handed Helen her gun and badge. She reached for them and looked at them as if they were foreign to her. 9 lives, she said. What? Asked Johnson. Helen didn't answer, took her gun, took the safety off, and pointed it at his enormous skull. Johnson smiled. Detective, please, act no more stupid than you are. What do you mean? You've already noticed from the weight of the gun that it's not loaded. Maybe there's still a bullet in the barrel. Johnson licked his lips. No, absolutely not. Helen pulled the trigger and said, Too bad. The gun clicked. It was empty. Johnson laughed with relief. Pardon? Asked Helen, her hands trembling. What's so damn funny? She was still pointing the unloaded gun at Johnson. Nothing, he said. I'm just glad I didn't have to kill you. Helen lowered the gun. What's this all about? She asked. You have guts, detective. Johnson laughed and his teeth flashed. And you kill with compliments, don't you? If that's the way you want to look at it, detective, I'll give the pilot the alternative route now. Do what you can't help doing, Helen replied. The trembling subsided, and her pulse slowed. Apparently, she still had a few lives left after all. She couldn't help but feel grateful, realizing that she would rely on them later in the evening of this crazy day. Hello, Jamie? Katherine called out. When she noticed the UPS van, she stopped. It looked so unreal in this barn that Katherine thought her imagination was playing tricks on her. She stepped closer, and, unlike Jamie before her, noticed the dark red stains in the cab and the drag mark leading to the horse stalls. That's blood, she thought. She was about to follow the trail to the stalls when she heard a noise from outside. A car was approaching. It braked. She heard the driver's door being pushed open. A voice called out, Miss Williams? For a moment, both impressions fought for her attention. Then the second one. Katherine turned and ran to the stable door. Miss Williams! The voice rang out again, and now Katherine recognized her. It was Davis, the same Davis who had thought she was a murderer just a few days ago. But she didn't care at that moment. Something bad had happened to Jamie. She knew it. She yanked the gate open with a jerk, and even before she stepped outside, an acrid, indefinable smell hit her. It smelled of rotten meat. Miss Williams. Davis grabbed her by the arm and pulled her toward the car. Come on, he urged. I'm taking you away from here. The catwalk killer is most likely already on the estate. Katherine resisted his grip. Yes, I know, but Jamie's still in the stables, and that UPS truck full of blood. Calm down, he interrupted. Get in my car and lock the windows and doors. I'm looking for Jamie, so please just get in. She reluctantly complied. Davis drew his gun and ran towards the open stable door. From inside the car, Katherine saw him stop at the threshold and glance into the stable. He seemed to think. Then he slipped inside. Minutes passed. Katherine checked the doors and windows several times. They were closed. She continued to wait. The shot came unaware and snapped her out of her stupor. Katherine flinched. 2 more shots rang out. Muzzle flashes flashed in the dark rectangle of the stable door. He's got him. Katherine breathed out a sigh of relief. This cop knows what he's doing. He's got the damn bastard. Davis stepped out. He took a step forward, looked at her, and then looked down at himself. A large red stain was spreading across his shirt. Then blood flowed from his mouth. Before he collapsed, he looked at her again with staring eyes as if to say, I'm sorry. A hand emerged from the darkness behind him, holding his gun. Then it vanished again, only to reappear with a bunch of keys. Katherine felt the steering wheel for the ignition key. There was none, only a start-stop button. Katherine pressed it. Nothing. The hand twirled the bunch of keys around a finger. Oh no, Katherine thought. She knew what was about to happen. These cars' workings were familiar to her. From her SUV, she knew. The engine wouldn't start without the little chip, and this chip could do even more. The hand pointed the remote toward the car. No. Oh God, no. The doors of the car were unlocked, the windows lowered with a whirring sound. Please don't. She was still staring at the stable door. The smell of rotten meat surrounded her again. She turned around. She looked through the open window on the passenger side and saw a grimace. No, that wasn't an actual face. The stranger was wearing a mask made of strips of human skin, held together with black tape. White teeth flashed at Katherine from the slit in his mouth. Katherine, how nice. Finally, we're meeting in person, he said. Katherine didn't scream. She closed her eyes and waited for the pain. The helicopter dropped Helen off in a meadow away from the estate. Johnson had offered to accompany her, but Helen declined. Don't take this the wrong way, Johnson, but I don't trust you. I understand, Detective. Then at least take this. He handed her Sig Sauer with his silencer still attached and a small pair of binoculars with a night vision function. Helen tucked the gun into her belt and the binoculars into the pocket of her jacket and nodded goodbye. Johnson returned the gesture and showed to the pilot with a circular finger movement that they could take off again. Helen stepped back. Grass and earth swirled up. Then the helicopter rose, slowly at first, like an old man, then speeding up. It turned in the air and headed north towards Washington, Helen guessed. She watched it for a moment, then made her way to the estate. Katherine heard the gurgling of small waves. It smelled of salt and seaweed. A breeze on her skin made her feel she was naked. Her arms hurt. The masked killer had bound her arms above her head, and her tied feet dangled above the ground. She could feel chains around her neck. She couldn't move. She tried to open her eyes, but something blocked them. She didn't need her eyes to know where she was. In the boathouse. She thought she could hear someone breathing. Very close. Hello, she called. She almost whispered the word. No answer. Hello, she called out a little more boldly. Still no answer. Helen walked crouched down to the main house. In front of the large horse barn was an unmarked New York police car. Davis, Helen thought. She crept along the horse gates and took cover behind a hedge. In the twilight, she could see that someone was lying on the ground in front of the gate. She took the binoculars out of her jacket pocket, adjusted the focus, and the sight startled her. It was Davis, and he wasn't moving. The surrounding gravel was dark with blood. Shit. Tears welled up in Helen's eyes. It couldn't be him. Not Davis. God damn it. Her first impulse was to run to him. Maybe he wasn't dead. Perhaps she could bring him back to life. Perhaps it could have been a trap. Like back at City Hall Station. She wiped the tears from her eyes. What should she do? Act, of course. Her partner needed help. She pulled out her cell phone and dialed Sheriff Miller's number. His aide answered. This is Detective Helen Louisiani, NYPD. Helen whispered into the phone. She didn't get any further, because a shovel hit her hard on the back of the head. Helen slouched. With a crunch, a heavy shoe crushed the cell phone and silenced the voice of the sheriff's assistant.
Dias is trapped inside her car, while the cop falls beneath the stars. At the boathouse tonight, evil's coming for his fight. A cop locked up in
Thank you for listening. To learn more about Heinke Digital Audiobook Podcasts and its author Christian Heinke, please visit heinke.digital.